Hello. Just waiting for people to come in. Just doing an impromptu live today and see who will join us. Hello. Well, today I'm just doing an impromptu live. I won't be long, but I wanted to touch on the toxic relationship, why it's hard to leave, why it's so hard for many to just pack up, go, stay away, don't return, and how we often find ourselves going and forth, back and forth, back and forth to something that we know is not good for us. Um, it's called a trauma bond. A lot of us become trauma bonded, and some people take that trauma bond, um, a, different ways. Um, but this particular trauma bond affects the chemical makeup of your brain because when we are in toxic relationships, we can clearly see that the relationship is not good for us, but we have a hard time deciding to pack up, leave, and never returning. Um, you all forgive me because I'm on my phone right now and I am not able to see my chat. Um, okay, maybe I can see it now if somebody chats. Um, okay, getting back to this trauma bond thing. I felt led today to come on here and talk about this thing because often when we separate from toxic situations, we found ourselves returning, um, and we can't figure out why. Uh, First of all, we miss the relationship. We miss the companionship. We miss what we felt was a real thing that we put our best effort towards. And we end up sometimes after we leave it, we end up going back. It is normal. It's a cycle that happens with toxic relationships. Um, Sometimes the only way we can get out is through therapy. Sometimes we can get out and we can stay out on our own without the need of therapy. Um, there are different ways you can figure out if you're possibly in a relationship that's forming from a trauma bond. Um, First of all, this is my opinion. I don't know if this is scientific, but I feel like trauma bonds can often develop in people who have dealt with traumatic situations, maybe with previous relationships, maybe through childhood, maybe you know, other circumstances, the reason why we get into these relationships and we end up in a trauma bond versus a healthy relationship. Hello, everybody coming in. Let's talk with love and Maritza. Thank you so much for joining. Um, this trauma bond, it doesn't necessarily have to occur between a male and female relationship, which is an eros relationship. It can also form between family members, co-workers, friendships. These type of trauma bonds can occur. Um, a trauma bond can also occur because maybe you have dealt with some post-traumatic stress, some type in your life from some type of situation. But you can tell if you are becoming traumatically bonded to a person by experiencing a relationship that's moving too fast. You can feel close to a person that you haven't known for very long, but you feel like you maybe have known them for your whole life. Um, you'll find yourself making dramatic changes. to your life for this new relationship. You end up putting a lot of time into, especially if it's romantic, that type of relationship. And sometimes you neglect your friends, you'll neglect family, or other relationships that you have with people. This person will be like the center of your life. um and as you get through the relationship with this person, like towards the end, you'll feel like you can't leave this person, or you're afraid to leave the person. uh you feel like there's no one else in the world who can make you feel or do for you what this person does, when we know that's not reality, because there are billions of people on the earth. So this is not the last person, but this is a trauma bond. Once you separate yourself from that person, I mean, you have to go through the natural cycle of the end of a relationship, the sadness, the um, anxiety, the loneliness. You're going to go through every one of those emotions. The difference is you feel like you're going to die if you don't get back to this person. And a lot of times you find, and I know that sounds dramatic, what I just said, that you may feel like you'll die if you don't get back to that relationship, but that is truth. You feel like you can't make it. Some people feel like they don't want to be here anymore because they're not with that person. But at the same time, you can clearly see that this person is not good for you. The relationship is not healthy for you. And therefore, you may end up returning. Now, when you leave these traumatic situations or these trauma bonded relationships, usually the toxic person will do something called hoovering. And I know a lot of people hear me say that over and over again. Uh, but basically, what that is the person trying to pull you back into their life. And it's very easy for them to pull you back in if you have been trauma bonded, because number one, you're essentially withdrawing from this person as if you're withdrawing from a drug. And you long and you still yearn for this person. So if they contact you directly, or if it's indirectly, if they text you, if you see them on the street, if a person asks you about them, because you're in a state of missing this person so much, you may just reach out or fall right back into that whole situation all over again. It's a trauma bond. And therefore, you will find yourself going back to this person, possibly, maybe over and over again. Hi, Joshua. Thank you for showing up. You know, and instead of you being able to just move forward, you will spend a massive amount of time just focusing on this person, focusing on what you thought you had, and you just go back. And like I said, it can happen time after time after time. But what we cannot do is beat ourselves up over it, because it happens. You go back, you leave. You go back, you leave. Now, I'm talking from the natural standpoint when I talk about a trauma bond, but we have to understand that this thing is not only natural, it is supernatural, meaning that it is uh, spiritual. It has a lot to do with our connection with God and the powers and principalities that we fight, because we don't fight against flesh and blood, but we fight against powers, principalities, and you know wickedness in high places. That's what we fight on a day-to-day basis. And this is why a lot of times we end up back with these people, because it becomes a battle in your mind. It's not only your heart, but it's your mind. And I believe it's more of a mind thing than it is your heart. Because yes, you will have these emotions like you want to go back to this person. Yes, you may go back, but at the end of the day, it is something that we are going through psychologically, the reason why we end up back with these people. Now, once again, I'm talking about a trauma bond. And I do talk a lot about narcissism, narcissistic relationships. Um, a lot of us deal with these trauma bonds when we have been involved with a narcissist. But the reason I'm using the word toxic is because narcissists are not the only toxic people, or they're not the only people that carry toxic spirits or demonic spirits, you know. So, um, this trauma bond thing, it's really, it's hard to get through. At the end of my relationship I had with the narcissist, it's a battle. It's a day to day battle. The thing that can help a person out is if they can maintain absolute no contact, zero contact with these people. It's hard if you have children involved, and it's sometimes hard if you even married and you may own property together, or you know, if you have a business together, or if you work with somebody. It's hard to have no contact. If you can't completely cut yourself off, you go ahead and you try to limit as less as possible time being around this person. Just try to limit your time, very little time. If you do have to be exposed to this person a lot, don't engage in long conversation. You can answer your questions short. You don't have to give long answers, or, you know, have like long conversation. If they say, "How you doing today?" Or "How did everything go yesterday?" It sounds cold, but you may just have to say one word. Fine. You make it to a point where you don't seem engaged, so they can feel like they cannot pull you back in. You're not only protecting yourself from that person, you're protecting yourself from you. Because if you keep engaging with these people who got you into a relationship where you feel trapped and you feel like you cannot let go, the best thing to do is to limit that conversation. Because you, being that it's something happening within us, the reason why we got trauma bonded in the first place, we can easily go back to these people. So I just wanted everybody to know that this trauma bond thing, it really affects relationships. It affects the ending of relationships. When we have situations with family or friends, and they talk to us and they tell us everything is sour and everything is wrong, and you know, we see them going back, we should not beat this person up. Be there to support them. It's a cycle. It's normal. It's nothing that this person is doing wrong. This person is still going through a real separation. And honestly, it's more of a spiritual thing than it is natural. You're battling for your mind. You're battling for spiritual freedom. You're battling for your soul. You are in a battle, a spiritual war, when you get involved with these toxic people. And I'm especially coming from the narcissistic standpoint. Um, you can get trauma bonded by a person giving you like emotional or physical trauma or verbal abuse or something like that. And then they, you know, every now and then they'll give you like positive reinforcement, or something that's positive in between all of that trauma. They give it to you and you look for that positivity, and you end up getting into this trauma bond when towards the end of the relationship it's hard to get out of. So, and the reason why you hear so much passion in my voice right now is because before I became involved in a toxic relationship, I couldn't understand how a person could be abused, or whether it be physical, verbal, emotional. I couldn't understand how that person could keep going back, or how they could stay with this person when they could see themselves that everything was wrong. But I understand now, it's something really different. It really is something that happens in your mind. And I don't care how much to leave, it's hard to pack up and go. So instead of us beating these people up or turning our backs, we have to have more compassion, more understanding, and just be there for support, because eventually these people will get up enough strength to leave. And then if they are in a relationship that is dangerous to them, where you feel like they could possibly get hurt, or even if they feel like they can get hurt, the only thing we can do is pray. That's all we can do, because just like we have to sit back and wait for a person to decide they don't want to pick up another drug and use it, it's the same concept with these people who are in toxic relationships. You literally have to wait for this person to get tired of being sick and tired and leave. And just like with people who are in um, trouble right now with drug addictions, some of them don't make it out. And unfortunately, the same thing goes with these toxic relationships. Sometimes people don't make it out. Hi, Legend. Thank you for joining. Um, so let's not beat up our people when they get in these relationships. Let's not do it. Let's open up our arms, still embrace these people with love, support, and help walk them through it. Because when we turn our backs on them, they already feel like they don't have anyone else in the world except this person that they're trauma bonded to. I remember feeling the same way. Even though I knew I had my closest friends, I knew I had my family, I knew it. But these people will have you feeling like you have no one except them. And that's why it's hard to leave. So let's try to keep that in mind when we're dealing with people who are involved with these toxic relationships. Let's not turn away. It may bother us, it may get on our nerves. We may feel like, well, how long is it going to take you to go ahead and leave like you say you're going to do? But we need to stick by these people. Pray, because eventually they will get up enough strength to leave. It's hard to leave. It is not easy. I mean, if you were not in a toxic or a narcissistic relationship, it's easy for you to pack up and leave because you haven't been trauma bonded. More than likely, it was a healthy bonded relationship. It wasn't built out of some type of a traumatic situation, or it wasn't made to be traumatic because you weren't dealing with a toxic person. So let's have a little compassion for these people. Um, Once again, I developed my compassion after I went through it. And like, it's hard to understand unless you go through it. You know, um, these trauma bonds, they create, when you're stressed out, your body also all automatically has responses to stress. Um, this trauma bond chemically, I know it sounds crazy that just being in a relationship can do something to your mind, can chemically change your mind like you are ingesting some type of substance. But it can, because it does the same thing as those drugs. It's hitting the same receptors in our brain that that drug did. And I'm just speaking from natural, because most of us know that this thing is definitely uh is spiritual warfare. When you get involved in a toxic relationship, it is no doubt spiritual warfare, you know. But these things that happen in our brain, like oxytocin, that's our cuddle hormone. Dopamine is the feel good hormone. So we become dependent on these people because this is what's coming out of this thing. This up and down, the good and the bad. It's causing us to have these type of chemicals spewing out of our brain, and it's creating that trauma bond, you know? So I just felt compelled to come out here today and talk about this trauma bond. There's a whole lot more going on with this narcissism, and these relationships are very prevalent in this world. Um, some of us are in relationships and we have no idea it could be a narcissistic. We know it's toxic, but we may not be able to pinpoint exactly what it is. Um, Let me see, Maritza. Hi, Wanda. I see you just joined. Maritza, she says, I was in one, my side piece, and I saw all the signs, and my good friend was there to encourage me. Exactly. When I was in my 10-year relationship, my very best friend, we've been friends since I was 4 years old. She saw things, but she never left my side. She saw me at my worst. She saw some things that I couldn't see because I was in it, but she stayed right there. She pushed me on. She gave me the encouragement I needed. She didn't beat me up because I knew I was in something crazy. So it's good to have people there who's going to support you. You know, we don't have that purple ribbon out here for domestic violence, which I also include uh, emotional um, abuse and psychological abuse. I also include that in DV because it can produce the same effects. You're just not getting physically beaten, but emotionally and psychologically is a whipping. Is a whipping, and it can change you. It can cause you to do some things that you've never done before. Sometimes I don't know if it's worse to be mentally going through this thing versus. I mean, I don't want to make like physical abuse is not a bad thing or is not traumatic because it is, but those bruises will heal now. Um, and I know it sounds like I'm saying it's not significant, but that one thing about something that's verbal and emotional, it can stick with you. And sometimes it's hard to shake. This is why I say I don't know which is worse. That's the only reason why I say it. Um, so everyone, try to have a little compassion for folks when they're in these relationships. Try to be patient. Sit back and pray as much as you can because at the end of the day, like I said a few minutes ago, it is literally spiritual warfare. Spiritual warfare. These people cannot, I don't want to say they can't leave because they can, but it's a battle. It's a real battle. Um, there's another thing that some people don't realize. And I think that I wish I had it with me. I don't have it right now. But if you all would read Second Timothy chapter 3, it talks about the end days and how people will be in the end times. I can think of some of it. I can't think of all of it. How people will be lovers of themselves, and um, they'll be always seeking the truth without accepting I'm not speaking in verbatim, um, without accepting the real truth of God. Um, they'll be selfish. They'll be uh, lovers of themselves. I think I already said that. It's a whole definition of basically the people that we're facing today. And I truly believe that the reason why this narcissism is so prevalent in this world right now is because we are living in not only the days of Noah, but we're also living in the time of Timothy, Second Timothy chapter 3. And one day I'm gonna write that down so we can so I can read it. I had it written. I wish I could just read it off to you right now so you can see what I'm saying when I talk about Second Timothy. Um, but we'll do that another day. We'll talk about Second Timothy chapter 3 and how it relates to a lot of these toxic personalities walking around here on this earth right now during this time. And we're going to come back another day. I only have a brief time as I need to clock in about 30 minutes. But I wanted to talk about that trauma bond. I want to actually encourage. I want to encourage those who are going through these type of relationships that just because you're having a hard time leaving don't mean you won't be able to do it. You know, keep the faith, pray, seek God. From the natural standpoint, when you feel like you want to go back, think about why you left. Think about the things that this person did. Um, think about all of the verbal abuse, the physical abuse, the financial irresponsibility, the um, downgrading of you as a person. Think about everything negative that pushed you away from this person because your mind is going to play tricks with you and going to make you remember the positive. But if you really sit back and look at that relationship that you left, you will realize that there was a whole lot more negative than there was positive. Hi, Brittany. Once you realize that there was more negative than that positive, you will be able to leave and you will be able to stay away. Like I said, in that trauma bond, you're looking for the positive. So therefore, you overlook the negative. So just remember, it's not it's not your end. And it can feel like it's the end of the earth for you when you have to leave this person. It's amazing how a person can make you feel like you can't move forward, like you're stuck with this person. This is why I say it's spiritual warfare because that's not true. You can leave. There's bigger and better things out here for you. God didn't put us here on this earth to be trapped in something that's not healthy, that's negative, that can potentially, ruin you as a person. These people are capable of totally tearing you down and making you a shell of the person that you used to be. People in your family, your friends, they'll no longer recognize you because this person has taken everything from you. But don't give up. I know that there's some out here now in these traumatic relationships. You don't know how to let go. You don't know how to move on. Hold on. Don't give up. You can get out of it. You can move forward. You can move on. I'm a living witness. Was it easy? No, but it is very well, uh, you are very well capable of leaving that relationship and you're able to move forward. Yes, the loneliness is going to be there, but it's only for a period of time. There's nothing wrong with being alone. When you leave the relationship, the very thing that makes you want to go back is the lack of companionship. But it's okay to be alone. During that time, heal. Try your best to heal. Take yourself out to dinner. Go, by yourself. Get to know you for you so you won't be susceptible to these relationships again. But above all, don't give up. You can get out of it. You can move ahead. The devil cannot bind you or bound you forever. Those shackles will break and you will be released. You have to have faith. It's a very trying time when you leave these people because the enemy is going to try to pull you back. But just hold on. Even if you go back, just remember you still, He hasn't left you, nor has He forsaken you. You can leave. You will leave. Keep the faith. Trust in God. And I have to go spiritual. I have to go there on this one because it's a spiritual warfare when you are in these toxic relationships. I never thought I would have to fight for my soul the way I did when I got away from this person, but I fought for it and I won. And I'm going to continue to win because all I could do was be victorious if I have God in my life. So I'm gonna go ahead and end this live unless somebody had a question, or if somebody wanted to come up, I can drop the link. I do have a few more minutes. I want to thank you all for joining. Um, and if we don't have anything else to talk about today, um, yes, that's right, Brittany. You fight for your soul. Yes, you fight for your soul. And most people don't realize it when they're in these things. You're not just fighting for your life, you're fighting for your soul. Yes. So we're going to end on that note. And if you joined a little late, it's a short live, so you can go back and you can listen to the replay. But what I essentially did was I explained the trauma bond, and I'm trying to encourage those who are in these relationships and they're having a hard time leaving, or they leave and they go back. Just don't give up. Don't give up. Don't beat yourself up. Don't feel like it's the end of the world. So y'all have a good day. I gotta get ready to go clock in and do job number two. But I'll be getting back with y'all and we'll be discussing a little more. Um, Hopefully we won't be discussing too much of this negative trauma bond. I mean, narcissistic stuff. But if it drops on me, I'm gonna have to talk about it. So y'all enjoy the rest of y'all day and thank you for joining.